Welcome, fellow lovers of the weird and strange. This is Lance, your host of Legends of the Hidden Horde, where we explore the folklore behind the mythical creatures that stalk the dark corners of our globe. A huge thank you to all of you for tuning in. Your ears make these strange journeys possible. If you enjoy the show, please hit that subscribe button, leave me a quick review, and give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, or X. Your support truly makes a difference. Now, let's dive into the next story. Before we get started, I'd like to say that the following story is an original dark narrative inspired by Inuit oral traditions, particularly variations recorded by Frank Boas in 1888 and retold by contemporary Inuit storyteller Elisha Qulliq in his 2011 book, The Qalupalik. It draws from accounts emphasizing the creature as a cautionary figure tied to real Arctic dangers, thin ice, cold water, and cultural values of listening to elders and respecting the land and sea. I have woven in documented variations while framing the story respectfully as living folklore, meant to teach survival and humility, not for sensationalism. Inuit storytelling is dynamic. Different communities and tellers adapt details. This retelling honors that spirit for educational and artistic sharing. This is episode 34, The Qalupalik. In the long night of the Arctic, where the sea breathes under thick ice and the wind carries secrets older than memory, the people of the camps knew to listen. They gathered in the warmth of the Qulliq, its flames flicking against the walls of snow and stone. Elders spoke in low voices of beings that shared the land and water, not as fairy tales for comfort, but as truths woven into survival. Among them was the Qalupalik, the one who waits beneath the ice edge. She was no beautiful siren of warmer seas. Accounts describe her as half human, half sea creature with skin the color of deep kelp or slick green stone, scaly and slimy to the touch, smelling faintly of salt and something older. Her hair hung long and tangled, dark as the water at the bottom of a lead, flowing like living seaweed. Her hands were webbed, tipped with long, sharp talons perfect for gripping slick ice or pulling something small and struggling downward. Someone said fins jutted from her back or arms. Others spoke of a mournful, almost human face with hollow eyes that held the sorrow of endless cold depths. Most distinctive was the emotic. She wore a traditional woman's parka with a large round pouch on the back, like those mothers used to carry infants close and warm. In her hands, it became something else, a place to tuck away what she took from the shore. Some tales said the pouch was lined with eider duck feathers or skins. Others claimed it smelled of the deep ocean and never emptied easily. She did not sing sweetly. Her call was a low, ethereal hum, sometimes like bubbles rising through water, sometimes like the wind sighing through cracks in the ice. Bye, 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 bye. Or a wordless melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It slipped under parkas and into dreams, drawing curious or disobedient closer to the edge. The people told these stories for a reason. The Arctic Sea gives seals, fish, the path for travel, but it takes without mercy if respect is forgotten. Thin ice, sudden tides, the numbing cold that steals breath in moments. These were real. The Qalupalik embodied that truth. She was the warning given shape. Consider the story of a girl named Nuka in a small camp near a stretch of coastline where leads opened and closed with the season. Nuka was quick and curious, but she had grown restless with the endless task of winter, helping with skins, tending the Qulliq, listening when the wind howled warnings. Her grandmother, an elder with eyes like dark water, would say, "Stay away from the ice edge when the hum comes." The Qalupalik listens for those who forget the old ways. Nuka laughed it off one twilight as the sky bruised purple and green with the first hints of the aurora. She wandered farther than usual, chasing a snow hare near a wide lead where dark water lapped at jagged ice. The air was still, almost too still. Then it began, the hum. Low at first, vibrating in her chest like the memory of her mother's voice calling her home. It grew sweeter, sadder, wrapping around her like the mist. "Come closer, little one," it seemed to whisper without words. "I have something for you, something warm in the cold." Nuka stepped nearer. The ice groaned. From the black water rose a shape, long hair first, plastered wet against greenish skin, then the glint of claws on the ice lip, then the emotic pouch shifting on her back as if something inside stirred. The Qullapalik's eyes met hers, not cruel, but ancient and lonely, filled with the weight of tides and forgotten names. Her talons flexed. The hum deepened. In that moment, Nuka remembered her grandmother's words too late. The creature lunged, not with wild hunger, but with the patient certainty of the sea claiming what drifts too close. Claws closed around Nuka's parka. The pouch opened like a dark mouth. In some tellings, the child vanishes into the water, never seen again, her laughter replaced by the endless hum. In others, the Qullapalik keeps her not to devour, but because lonely sea spirits sometimes crave the warmth of the world above, using stolen children to keep their own skin green and hair flowing, like a strange, sorrowful fosterage. But the old stories are not always endings. They are teachings. Some variations ripple through the traditions like cracks in spring ice. In one recorded account from the late 19th century, hardships drove a grandmother to call out to the Qullapalik in desperation, offering her starving grandson because she could no longer feed him. "Take him. He will be better with you." The creature took the boy, tethering him with seaweed beneath the ice. Later, when the camp's fortunes turned, hunters tracked the sound and rescued him through cunning. They asked the creature to change shape, some say into a seal or whale, using its own ability against it, then cut the tether at dawn when its power waned. The boy grew into a strong hunter, carrying the memory like a scar of both loss and rescue. Other variations speak of the creature being tricked by clever children. An orphan boy in one modern retelling who faced capture pointed to his worn comics where toes peeked through and claimed they would bite and eat the Qalupalik if she took him. Startled by the toes that eat monsters, she fled beneath the ice. Some stories portray multiple Qalupalik. Others treat her as singular, a lonely spirit. What happens to the taken? Devoured in some, held in a stasis-like state to sustain the creature's youth in others, or, in rare, more haunting versions, raised in the deep as companions to the sea being. There are whispers of offerings or prayers in times of famine, blurring lines between punishment, sacrifice, and desperate exchange. Hunters sometimes outwitted her by demanding she shapeshift, turning her own power into vulnerability. These edge cases show the folklore's flexibility, warnings braided with hope that wit, community, and respect can push back the darkness. Nuka's story, and the versions told around certain Qulliq, ends with rescue at the edge of dawn. Her family, hearing the unnatural hum in her absence, followed tracks and the faint echo of bubbles. They called her name into the crack, cut the clinging seaweed with quick knives, and pulled her free as the first light weakened the creature's hold. Nuka returned changed, quieter, more attentive to the wind and the elder's words. She never again dismissed the hum as wind or imagination. The Qalupalik had not been defeated, she had simply withdrawn, patient as the ice itself, waiting for the next forgetting. The people still tell it this way, not to frighten for its own sake, but because the sea remembers. The Qalupalik is the embodiment of boundaries between land and water, children and adult wisdom, the known camp and the vast unknown. She teaches that the world is alive with forces that do not bend easily to human will. Disrespect the ice, ignore the voices of those who have lived with it longest, and the cold claims its due. Yet she also carries a thread of melancholy, a being half tied to the human world through her emotic and her longing. a mirror of the loneliness that comes from living only in the depths. The Qalupalik endures because she is more than a monster. She is a living metaphor for the Arctic's dual nature, nurturing provider and indifferent taker, and for the wisdom encoded in the indigenous oral traditions. She teaches humility before powers greater than ourselves. The sea, the ice, the accumulated knowledge of elders who survived where others did not. In an age of rapid change, her lessons sharpen. Climate disruption is thinning the ice, altering the very leads and shorelines where these stories were born, disrupting the transmission of the Unikaktuit from one generation to the next. The hum today might be the warning calls of scientists and indigenous knowledge keepers about melting permafrost, shifting ecosystems, and rising seas, ignored at our collective peril, much like a child drawn to the edge. As the world changes, the Qalupalik realm expands in metaphor. She becomes a guardian spirit, not just of Arctic children, but of all who must relearn respect for boundaries, ecological, cultural, and existential. Preserving and respectfully sharing these stories strengthens resilience. They remind humanity that monsters often rise from our own disconnection, and that listening, truly listening, to the wisdom of those who have long tended the land offers paths through uncertainty. In the end, the Qalupalik does not demand conquest or fear alone. She asks for relationship. Approach the unknown with caution. Carry the pouch of responsibility for the young and the vulnerable. And remember that even in the darkest water, there is light if we heed the voices that came before. That's it for the story of the Qalupalik. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Give me a follow on social media. And never forget that the ice remembers every step. And keep your eyes open. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.